Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. It's funny, I almost said telling them how to be successful. Right? And I enjoy this month so much talking with people just about LinkedIn, because to me, it is the one place that every single professional should be on, whether you're an employee, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a college student, or somebody who might be in the job market again at some point. You need to have a LinkedIn presence, and it's all about building up who you're connecting with and then treating them well. And so we're going to have a guest on who I had on earlier this year, and she was just so fabulous, had to have her on again. But specifically, we wanted to talk LinkedIn. So please join me in welcoming Kymberli Speight back to our program again. Welcome back, Kymberli.
Thanks, Deb. It's so great to be here. And as like the last time, I really enjoyed our conversation before.
I know. And truth be told, we just talked for an hour before I ever turned the record button on. So someday I should do an outtakes type of thing. We'd have a great time with that. But let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we'll dive into this. So Kymberli Speight is an author, speaker, executive coach, and professional trainer. Currently, she serves as the president-elect for NSA-Austin and teaches executive transition courses for the U.S. Air Force. Kymberli is an Air Force Academy graduate. Go Zoomies! She has jumped out of planes, soloed in a plane, and purchased 36 F-15E fighter jets when she was in the Air Force. And as always, Kymberli, thank you so much for your service.
It's my pleasure.
In February of 2020, Kymberli released her new book, I Need to Know You, How to Meet Ordinary, Extraordinary People and Improve Your Life, which is about a challenge she took to meet 100 people in 100 days. She is still in touch with around 70 of those individuals 2 years later. And now she speaks on relationship building, which is key in our professional lives. Kymberli has been blessed with the opportunity to have lived in so many wonderful places, as far north and east as Maine, as far south as Texas, and also as far west as Hawaii, and even further, Okinawa, Japan. She has had the privilege to have met wonderful people everywhere and understands the importance and power of building solid, mutually beneficial relationships. So again, Kymberli, welcome back to the program.
Thanks so much, Deb. I'm really glad to be here and to be able to talk with you about LinkedIn and networking with LinkedIn.
Great, great. Well, I always love hearing about how someone got to where they are today, because, you were in the military and you still volunteer with them. But how is it that you discovered that teaching people about networking is your passion in life?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've always loved people. People have always, to me, been important. And moving so much with the military, my husband's active duty, you always had to, bloom where you're planted. You always need to get connected really fast. And when you're on a military base, people know that people are coming and going. And so, we make friends fast.
Right.
What I found, though, was when we lived in a community that wasn't a military community, that it was harder to get plugged in to those environments and to make those great friendships. And
because it's almost like, well, you're going to move, so why bother?
Yeah, that's sometimes what people would feel like. So you really had to make the effort to let people know that while I'm here, it was important. Just people are just important. They just improve your life so much.
Right.
And so, it would be like the first couple of months when you first moved someplace, and to not know people was just, for me, not a great feeling. So I just really made the effort and was really intentional about forming those relationships.
Right. I love it. And before, when you were on the program, we really talked, obviously, about networking and how to make those connections. And I love your book. I think it's great. I had so much fun getting it back out and kind of reviewing it again before today's program. But networking in person is different obviously from networking online. So how do you deal with networking online and specifically through LinkedIn?
So it is a little bit different, but the principles are still the same. So the
Okay.
principles are still being able to give. So I call it building social capital. So giving to your network. It's still about being mindful about the people that come across your path. And it's still about paying attention to every single human interaction that you have. So it's still, those elements are still really, really important, even on LinkedIn. And so what I find sometimes is when people will reach out to me to connect, I can still feel when there's an ulterior motive. I can still, sometimes I'll look and see who's wanting to connect, and I'll read their duty title. And if it's something about, I can expand your client base, I'm going, okay, so
yeah.
A lot of those I won't accept. Sometimes even if I do, like I'll look through their profile and I go, well, there might be a reason to connect. Because I always feel like as long as there's a reason, if I can be of help to them or they can be of help to me, then I'll connect. So sometimes I'll just go, I'm pretty sure, because like sometimes you should always, first of all, send a message with your invitation to connect.
Right. Yes. Because you want to remind them, we met somewhere, I read your book. We have mutual connections, things like that.
Yeah, there should be a reason. So sometimes, I'll go, okay, well, they gave me a decent enough reason to connect. So I'll connect. But again, I'm looking at their title. I'm going, I wonder how long it's going to take for the sales part to, and it usually comes out really fast. Right. So then, I'll just politely say, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. Right. And if they continue to send you those types of things, then I'm like, well, I guess I'll have to disconnect. But generally people will get the message.
Right.
But it still takes time to build relationships. So I'm thinking, on LinkedIn, it would be great to connect with somebody, have a reason to connect, and start building that relationship, meaning offering things that you can give. If somebody's interested in something based on what's in their profile, being able to maybe share an article or comment on their posts or like their posts, engage with their posts without the salesy, like 1, 2, 3, here I am.
Right.
Take the time to really build those relationships. And it's not to say that, sure, you're in business and you have something to offer, but if you're offering me great value, then when I need what you have, I'll probably reach out to you.
Right.
Or, after time, you could reach out to me and just let me know about something that you're doing. And it takes time to build those relationships. So I would say, really still, when you connect with somebody, be a giver, right? Give what you can. And then pay attention to people. So like different profiles or somebody you might run across. If there's a reason to connect, reach out to them, say, hey, I'd like to connect with you and here's why, right? And so you're starting to then build that relationship with them. If they connect with you, then you start to see their posts.
Right.
You start to see the things that they're interested in and engage with them that way. And then again, you still have to be mindful of when you're interacting, even in writing, even through social media, how are you coming across? Are you being authentic? Are you being genuine? Are you showing them that I see you and I care about you? Or do you have that ulterior motive because that's still going to come through?
Right. And you mentioned authentic. It's funny. While we were chatting before the program, we were talking about Facebook and all the ick is maybe the best way to put it that goes on Facebook. Whether it's political posts, whether it's disagreements about vaccinations, whether it's my college basketball team is better than your college basketball team, right? We just finished March Madness. And all these various things. And so then we get turned off on it. Now, granted, there are people who relish that. They think that's the greatest thing in the world. But the nice thing about LinkedIn is we don't see those things. It is 99% of the time, 99.9999999% of the time, professional. And so I think so many people truly appreciate that. But the biggest thing that I hear from people is, but I don't know what to post. How am I going to get somebody interested? So what do you tell folks?
Okay. So first of all, who's your target audience?
Okay.
So understanding who your audience is, those are the people that you're going to initially want to reach out and connect with. And then if you're paying attention to what they're talking about and just being intentional, then you might start to realize, well, I actually have something to say about that. And if you start seeing things coming up over and over again, then that's maybe something you write a post about, if that's your area of expertise. Again, so it happens, and it happens the same way that you're having a conversation with someone and you're being intentional, you're listening. So it's being intentional really to listen to your target audience and say, okay, I have this to offer. Let me share a little bit about
I saw this great article or whatever.
Right. Thought this might resonate with you. And again, if you see things over and over again, some of the same types of things, then those are things, great ideas to write posts on. And even if you're not ready to write it at the time, just start taking notes. One thing you can do is, as you're looking at the things that you're commenting on, what's the themes that are running through your comments? And again, even if you don't write a post at that particular time, just start making a note, like a list of things that you could, when you have the time or want to write a post about.
Right. You know, and I think one of the things that people need to remember is we don't post, for the most part, nearly as often on LinkedIn as we do on other platforms. You know, I'll post sometimes 5 to 10 times a day on Facebook. I know people who will, you know, do 20, 30 tweets, and that just works well for those platforms. On LinkedIn, 1 or 2 good posts a week might be, you know, the best thing to get somebody's attention and to really be providing a benefit to others.
Right. So consistency is the key still, right? So if you're going to post once or twice a week, then be consistent with the day, be consistent with the time, so that people can start to go, oh, when they see
there's going to be a great post from Kymberli on Monday at 2.
Right.
Ish.
Yeah. So something like that. People are starting to go, okay, so this is my tribe. And I know that I'm going to get something great. So I actually typically will post once or twice a week because I'm doing so many other different things on LinkedIn, but I'm pretty consistent. It's either going to be Tuesday or Thursday. So even if it's once a week, but people get in the habit of seeing what you're writing about, and you're starting to grow your brand that way.
Right.
Now, having said that, that's not to say that you can't still comment on other people's posts.
And that's so important.
Right. Because then you're giving to your network, even if it's a like, or I love that LinkedIn now has expanded it. So it's not just a like, you have all these other.
We've got the other little emojis. Let's see, I'm looking right here. What have we got? So we've got a thumbs up. We've got clapping. We've got a heart that's in your hand. I guess that's kind of like the care.
I care. Yeah. I support.
A heart, a light bulb, and a
Yeah. So I love that, because you can start to express yourself in different ways, right? So it's not that hard to, for your network, as you're giving to them, to maybe just say, hey, I see you. Because that's one thing that people, I think, in this whole networking thing, people don't feel like they're being seen or heard or appreciated. So just even kind of engaging, even at the lower levels, of just some kind of emoji says, I saw you. And then if you want to take it that next step and really spend a little bit of time, that's when you can make that comment. And that's a way of giving to your network, of building social capital by doing that, even if you're not writing an actual post.
Right. Yeah. I was talking with a young woman earlier this week who was very frustrated. She said, you know, she had been using LinkedIn. She'd been active on LinkedIn. She had a pretty good profile. I mean, you know, I'm always going to make suggestions as to, you know, if asked, of ways that somebody can do something different on their profile. But she said, you know, nobody ever comments. You know, she feels like, you know, the tree in the forest that falls and nobody hears it. And she said, you know, so I feel like it's a waste of time. And one of my questions to her was, you know, what was she posting? And she really was just doing a link to an article. And I said, okay, so what you need to do is say what you liked or disliked about the article, and ask questions. Say, you know, what do you think about this, or things like that. And then I said, and you need to be going to other people's posts, you know, and commenting there and doing things. And I said, because it is a reciprocity type of thing, you know, when, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, well, Kymberli said something nice about my last 5 posts. Maybe I should say something nice about hers. Oh, it really is good information. You know, and so, you know, that is the thing, you know, to get attention, you have to give attention.
Right. Exactly. Conversations are reciprocal. So it's the same on social media. I know when I first started, I wasn't necessarily writing posts, but I would comment on somebody else's post and say, I really did enjoy this aspect, or let me ask you some questions about this. So again, it's that engagement, and that keeps you top of mind as well, right? Because then your network is going to see, well, Kymberli or Deb made a comment about, you know, and they're giving their thought leadership. So you're building that credibility, but you are giving. So then when you do post something, then people do pay attention more to what you have to say. So I totally agree with your approach.
Well, and it is like Facebook. When we comment, when we like, you'll go, you know, whatever that little emoji is, it drives it back in the news feed, and
Right.
and other people see it. So, LinkedIn has algorithms just like Facebook has algorithms. The more activity there is, the more your posts are going to show up. And the more active you are, the more likely it is that LinkedIn will show things. I always, people are like, well, when I search for, say, a job skill or a location, and it looks very random, I say it's actually not random. If I've looked for, say, social media consultant in Atlanta, it seems like just all these names. I said, no, I said, it's coming up. First, it comes up with who you're connected to, because it's like, oh, hey, you're connected to Kymberli, you really should,
Right.
and then it's second degree and third degree. And then, but in there, it's also prioritized by how active they are, because LinkedIn doesn't want to suggest somebody that never does anything on the platform. So if you
Right.
want to be found and seen, the more active you are, the more you're going to show up in searches also.
Exactly. And so it's also is dependent on how many people you're connected to.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they take all that into account. That's why I always tell people, so you want to connect to people as a first level, because that also gives you exposure to second level connections.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you post, the great thing about LinkedIn is when you make a post or a comment, Facebook might bring it up into people's feeds, like your feed. But like if I comment on something, it goes out, something that you posted, it goes out to my whole network.
Right.
So I'm actually able spreading your message to my whole network. So it actually works a little bit. I think it's a great way to help people get their message out as well.
Right.
And if you, the more comments you have within the first couple of hours, there's this algorithm that LinkedIn uses that within that first 2 hours is really critical. Because the more that there's an interaction within those first 2 hours, the wider your post goes as well. So you really want to make sure you're paying attention to those first couple of hours.
Right. And like we said, LinkedIn has those algorithms. It wants it, they, them, who, whatever the entity that is LinkedIn. It really wants the popular kids to be seen more. And so the trick is that we just have to become the popular kid. And it's it's back to exactly what we were saying. Who is your audience? Who are you trying to reach? Because if you're just posting to post, it might have a temporary ping. Maybe you put, a link to an article that was, some very popular article. Okay, that's great. That might drive things up temporarily, but that you can't maintain that. And you said it before, it's consistency.
Yes, it's consistency. It's putting quality information out there as well. And if you're writing about certain topics versus if you're all over the board with the things that you're writing about, then people don't know what to expect from you. So you can grow your audience by being consistent with things that are relevant, again, to your target audience. And also when you're giving, when you are giving in different ways, it comes back and people start to pay a lot more attention.
Right.
And
and whether that's sharing other people's content, commenting on their things, all of those various things. I mean, that is where that giving comes in.
Yeah. So I've got to tell you a story, Deb, because this happened. And I thought that was when I really started to think about it, I thought it's pretty amazing. So a gentleman reached out to me through LinkedIn because he had a podcast that it was called the Happiness Podcast. And he wanted me to speak on his podcast. So I did not know him. He reached out to me through LinkedIn. And because of what the subject matter was, it was relevant to me because of my book was out and things of that nature. So I agreed to be on his podcast. So while we were talking on the podcast, we were talking about giving. And so as we were talking, I talked about giving without any expectation and just being able to give what you're willing to give. And he said, it's kind of like, give getting. And I said, yeah, that's exactly. And so I said, can I borrow that phrase? And he said, well, sure, be my guest. So he gave me a phrase and he said, by all means, go ahead and use it. And so I wrote this post called Give Getting, or Are You a Give Getter is actually the way I titled the post. So in the interim, though, I found out that he was a part of an organization that I belonged to. So then we started to form a little bit more of a connection based on that commonality. But it all started with him reaching out first and giving.
Right.
So I actually then, because of that particular podcast, I put that on my website, the new website that I just have. So he gave to me and now I gave back. Okay. So then he and I connected on LinkedIn. Now, when I wrote the post, are you a give getter? because of his network, there was somebody else that had podcasts that commented on my post. And he said, I just had this gentleman, Bob Berg, on my program.
We love Bob.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, he's awesome. So he commented and said, what you wrote is just in line exactly with what he's talking about. And his name is Matt Zimmerman. That's the gentleman that commented. So within a couple of hours, not only did Matt Zimmerman make that comment, there was another friend of mine, Kate Russell, who also made a similar comment, and she linked Bob's book in her comment.
Yep.
So so I saw Bob's name like several times within 3 days. So I'm actually going to show his book.
Oh, we love Bob. Bob's been on the program several times. He is one of the most delightful, authentic, nice people ever.
He is super, super kind. You are exactly right. And I'm just getting to know him. But see, he's a giver though, right? So because my friend had mentioned several people had mentioned his name, and he was tagged in my post. He actually commented on my post, not knowing me. He gave,
and it was him. He doesn't outsource that.
Yes, it was him. So then, Deb, I reached out to Bob on LinkedIn, and I said, Bob, I said, you don't know me, but I just had this post, and several people mentioned your name, and to my shame, I did not know about his book and his work. And so he commented back. He wrote me a private message back. So now we're starting to develop a relationship. And I said to him, I said, Bob, I said, I would love to meet with you on Zoom, because the goal of social media is you might start your connection there, but you always want to make it
to deepen it.
Right, exactly. So I said, again, not knowing exactly who he was, I said, I would love to maybe just have a conversation with you over Zoom. And he was so kind and politely let me know. He says, well, I would love to, but if I did that, I would be doing these type of meetings,
right.
Yeah. So then I said, oh, okay. And then I noticed, because I went back to his LinkedIn profile, and I noticed that he was a part also of an organization that I'm a part of, National Speakers Association.
Right.
And often people will, of their generosity, come and speak to our different chapters. So I said, would you be open to speaking at our chapter? And he wasn't able to because, of time constraints and that. But you know what he did, though? He took enough time and paid attention to who I was and understood that I was in the military, that he said, you would probably really have a great conversation and a great connection with a friend of mine. Her name is April. Okay, so now Bob's giving. Okay, so all of this started with a post that I wrote initially. So then I reached out to April, and I said, April, Bob said that, he thought because of your Air Force background, she had actually been in Air Force television, that we'd be a great connection. Would you like to connect on LinkedIn, which she did? Would you like to have a conversation? So we initially set up a 15-minute Zoom conversation. We talked for an hour.
Of course.
Just fabulous, April. And so then I circled back to Bob, and I said, Bob, thank you so much. Because, when people give, it's nice to hear back. Right.
Right.
So I said, Bob, thank you so much for that connection to April. She's delightful. We hit it off, and I just had the best conversation. Well, that made his day.
Right.
So when you give, it makes the other person really feel great. Right. So that was now awesome. And he and I we're starting to build a deeper connection, because I said, thank you. Here's what you did for me.
Right.
So then, I was starting to get the clue that Bob is a pretty famous person. And so I had on his LinkedIn profile, he had his book, The Go-Giver, and other books, because he's written quite a few books. And so I was sharing about how he and I met, and we're starting to build this relationship in a seminar that I was doing. And so I copied his LinkedIn background, and so I showed his picture, and then you know what? I talked about his books to my audience because he had given.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, let me give back. And then I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I should circle back with Bob and just make sure that it's okay, because I copied his link, the part of his profile, which is public data. Right. So I didn't think he'd have a problem. And I was advertising his books, but I thought I'll just circle back. Right. So then I said, Bob, I just want to let you know that I used this in a presentation, and I'm thinking about using it some more. Is it okay if I do that? And he said, he goes, he was so gracious. He said,
he'd be very humbled by it.
He was, he was just so sweet. And then he thanked me. And then he even said, but I really appreciate you circling back and asking my permission, So I just thought, okay, that is that is just so genuine. And for somebody so busy and somebody, you know,
Right.
his level of fame to just connect with me in such a real and
Mhm.
personal way. And so I've actually been using that now with the military folks when I give my presentations and I talk about just what we were talking about here, connecting in a fun, authentic way and how you can develop that relationship. So now, you know, if I reached back out to Bob, I don't think I'd be a foreign person. He'd know who I
Right.
was. And I'm able, and I want to give back to him because he has been so generous with his time. But that's, you know, that's taking time. It's building that relationship. And when he gave to me initially, he wasn't giving going, oh, she's going to advertise.
Right. There was not any expectation of any type of follow-up, anything they were going to get back.
Exactly. Exactly. And now I've signed up on his, you know, I'm on his newsletter.
Oh,
I
yes.
you know, because I want to stay connected to people who are willing to give.
Right.
So,
Right. You know, and I think that's the important thing is, you know, as you were saying, you give without any expectation. Because when we do that, you know, most of the time we get something back. Sometimes we don't. I mean, you know, and then it's like, okay, well, whatever. You know, maybe it was because they didn't know how to give back or, you know, all sorts of things. But yeah, we should never do it with the expectation that something comes back. And we also need to remember it might not be right away. You know, a year from now, Bob might contact you and say, oh my gosh, Kymberli, you need to talk to so-and-so because, you know, he's ex Air Force and, you know, or they're setting up a new training program with the Army. I know you've been doing it with Air Force. Would you do this with the Army? I mean, you know, so sometimes it takes a while to foster those things, but, you know, that is also where you have to continue posting. You know, if you keep, you know, if you know, if I were to keep seeing your posts on LinkedIn, it kind of keeps you top of mind with me, so that then when something comes up, I'm like, that's who I need to introduce to Kymberli or whatever. And you know, and so that is where it's important to continue being active.
It is. And I always tell people you need to be the CEO of you. Whether you own a corporation or not is your job to stay top of mind. And so, like you said, Deb, as you're putting out information that's relevant to your audience, you will stay top of mind. And I always tell people, give what you can, right? And like you were talking about, give and you give and you give. And you'd be amazed at what comes up, how people are able to give. But I agree with you too. You don't connect with somebody always thinking, well, what's the return on investment if I connect with this person? Right? Because then that's very calculative.
Yeah. And a little sleazy.
Yes. So you just never know as you're giving, what you get back may not come from the initial person that you gave to, but if you're giving on a regular basis, what you're able to give, it will come back from somewhere in your network. So the same is true on social media.
Right. And in fact, maybe even more so on social media, because we're not seeing people. And so, you know, there's different reminders that are happening.
Right. Exactly. So when you see their posts, they're top of mind. And that's a very easy time to make a comment or reach back out to someone. It's very easy then to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn and say, hey, I was thinking of you. I know that you've been posting about these types of things. Maybe you would be interested in this, or maybe you would like to be connected to such and such. So somebody else in your network, and you can make that connection because they're staying top of mind and you think about the people that they might benefit from.
Right. You know, and the whole pandemic has just thrown, you know, we're now over a year into this. And, you know, I always get a kick out of the people that are saying, when is it going to go back to normal? It's not. You know, we're not going to function like we did before, even several years from now. You know, if you think, okay, well, you know, the virus will be taken care of, all those various things, just because we're learning different ways to operate. You know, we adapted. You know, but when we went to in-person networking things, part of that was to stay top of mind. You know, you went every month, you went every week, you know, whatever it was, you know, that you could go and do, so that the other people who were at those events remembered you. You know, it's been over a year since I have attended an in-person networking event. And I can guarantee that if I were to go to one now, there would be people that I would think, they look familiar, but you know, and I wouldn't be able to completely place them, you know, and so that's why on LinkedIn, you need to just keep gently reminding people, hello, I'm here. What was it the Horton Hears a Who? We are here. We are here. We are here. And you just do it kind of in that sweet way, as opposed to, hey, pay attention to me now.
Right. Well, and people aren't going to be annoyed if you are giving them
Right.
relevant content. If it's something that is going to be of interest to them, and sometimes I'll even title my posts for my job seekers or for my people.
Right. So then that person knows, oh, I need to read this.
Right. Exactly. So you kind of signal, and then again, it's going to be information that would be valuable to them. So I never get tired of the people who come across my feed. And I don't have to read something. If something's not going to resonate with me, I don't have to read it.
Right.
But certainly if it does, then why would that bother me?
Right. And if I took the time to read it, something in there interested me. So then I should also take the time to, reply, click the buttons, and the buttons are great, but take the time to reply, and reply with more than one word, or great article. If you thought it was a great article, say why, because that's where that conversation comes up. Now, I mean, if you're on your phone, that's, sometimes that's where we do just click the like button and things like that. But yeah, and the cool thing is then it's going to be in your own activities list. So that might be the way to like, okay, Kymberli posted this great article that I need to remember to go back and read. So I'm going to click like, so then it makes it easier for me to find it. And so some things like that. But yeah, it's all about being human, even though it's on this computer platform.
Right. And I even pay attention to, if I got a like, does this person just like things regularly, or do they ever clap, or do they
right? Yeah, do the I never noticed the obviously.
Right. But the love, I always notice the love, and I always notice the support, and I tend to be more on the generous side, because if somebody took the time to post something, and especially if something's well written, then I want to acknowledge that. Right. And I want to, and like you said, to be thoughtful with your responses, because again, you're giving back then to your network.
Right.
And it's always great. As you're reading different things, it sparks ideas that you might have. And so asking questions of people also in your posts to help them with that engagement is also really, really valuable.
Yeah. It's funny. We're talking about the like button, or, all of the various emojis. When I click it on LinkedIn, I mean it. When I click it on Facebook, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Cute picture, cute picture, cute picture, cute picture. I didn't read what it said. But when I've taken the time to do it on LinkedIn, it's because I paid more attention. Now, that could be, I might be the only person who does it that way. But yeah, it does seem to be, because we definitely have fewer of those on LinkedIn. Now, part of that is simply because it's far less people, no matter who you're connected to. I mean, it's just, more than likely, it's much fewer people on LinkedIn than on the other social media sites. But, I think people are more considerate, is maybe the better way to put it, as opposed to stingy, with, with their comments and with their clicking of the buttons on LinkedIn. It really caught their attention for them to do something.
Right. And it's different because, like, on Facebook, so I might comment on somebody's Facebook post, but it's only going to be seen by their friends that go to that, right? If I comment on something on LinkedIn, my comment then is going to be seen by their group, and it's going to go out to my entire network. They're going to see what I commented on as well. So it operates a little bit differently. And again, on LinkedIn, you're really more expecting to see some professional type posts. So now you're talking about, this is my area of expertise. This is my profession. And so I think to be thoughtful, I think we should always be thoughtful, to a degrry, on, because you and I were talking about how earlier people.
The ick factor on Facebook is getting pretty high.
Well, and what people don't realize, though, is that's still attaching to their brand.
Right.
And so people who are in the professional world are still going to check that out too, especially if they're looking to hire them, or who is this person, right? So, but it's interesting because when I do see things that are kind of icky on LinkedIn, we're pretty good about policing people, and saying, that's really not appropriate for this platform. And, or I'm quicker to unconnect from somebody on LinkedIn
Yeah, yeah. Now, if politics is someone's business,
That's
then you
different.
expect to see political posts.
Right.
But yeah, it's, and you still can have fun posts too. I think that's the other thing that people are like, well, LinkedIn is so boring. It's only business. No, I mean, you can have fun posts as long as they're still appropriate fun
Right.
posts. And I think that's the thing to remember is, this is not the, LinkedIn is not the place for the cute cat video, but it might be the place to talk about, a story about, say, a cat rescue organization. I mean, trying to draw analogies between cats and cats is, kind of like herding cats. I got myself down that path that kind of went to nowhere, but yeah, you can still have fun on LinkedIn. I mean, I think that's one of the things that people don't know, I mean, it's just like, I tell people, online networking is, as we were saying at the very start, very similar to in-person networking. You still have fun when you are at an in-person networking event. You joke with people,
Right.
you say, oh my gosh, did you see this? Now, it does need to be toned back a bit on LinkedIn, but you still have to be authentic to your personality. I mean, that's the other thing.
Right. Well, you should be, because really and truly, people do business with people. They hire people. They promote people that they know, like, and trust.
Right.
Right. So LinkedIn is an opportunity for you not only to become known, but for to also become liked, because you're going to show more of, you want to be able to show who you are.
Right.
Being authentic. And if your personality is you have some jokes, then go for it. Just tasteful, because
Right. Yeah. No bad words. No.
Right. Yeah. But you still want to be yourself, and enjoy the people that you're engaging with. And as you're commenting, people, again, they get to know you, they get to like you, they get to trust you. And out of that comes, from the professional side, the business aspect that's going to come. So it's a great platform to actually, you do want to be yourself. You're not trying to be this, pasty robot.
Right. In your suit and, no, I mean, that's not usually who we are. I mean, there are some people that are like that, but yeah, it's okay. And I mean, you can even poke fun in little places, like in my headline, which is supposed to be, the very serious, right? It says college sports fanatic.
I love that.
And and if I'd had more room, I would have said go Buffs, but I ran out of character space. But yeah, I mean, it's just a little way to get your personality in there so that we know, hey, this is somebody I want to work with, or maybe somebody I don't want to work with. But yeah, it's perfectly fine to have those little bits of your personality in there.
Oh, of course. And I always tell people, like, in your headline, because that's, if I see you, I mean, maybe I'll open up your profile, but you want me to open up your profile, right? That's why you're there, right?
Right.
So give me your search engine optimization words. So that's what you do, right? But then give me a little bit of sizzle also. It's I can see, what do you value? I mean, you can talk about your values. You can talk about things that are important to you. You can talk about things, maybe aspects of your business that you really love. So give me the search engine optimization word so I can find you for the business purpose. But I also want to see a little bit of your personality. So add the sizzle. That's totally, I encourage it.
Right. And that's also why we tell people, it's important to fill out the education part, because, it's alumni are one of those funny things. We might have gone to school 20 years apart, but I'll still help somebody that went to the University of Colorado. And I mean, clearly Air Force Academy is a totally different type of bond. But yeah, that's why it's so important. And it's funny because I've talked to several people recently who have their high schools in there, and and that of me thought, oh yeah, that's, and one of them said, you would not believe the business contacts I have made.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, you sold me. Now I went to a tiny little high school where I had a whopping 32 in my graduating class. I'm still in touch with quite a few of them on Facebook, so probably I don't need to put it on my LinkedIn profile. But if you went to a larger school or maybe a specialty school, there's obviously lots of, whether it's a private school or say a school for the arts or something like that, I would definitely put that in there, because again, that helps people find you, helps them find that common interest, and then connect with you.
Absolutely. And in fact, in my courses, I usually show people how you can go to go in the search bar and put your school in there. And then when your school comes up, you click on alumni so that you can find out who in the area, because you can drill down then in terms of what did they study? What part of the country do they live in? Where do they work? So you can drill down and connect with people that went to your school. Because like you said, I mean, again, that's a commonality. So people, when you can find something that you have in common with someone else, that's a natural launching point then to develop that relationship, which networking really is about building relationships. So I always thought that's the alumni feature is awesome.
And it's important that we look at everybody's entire profile. Now, I'm not saying read it word for word, but to kind of go through and see, where they worked, where they went. Now, I'll admit, sometimes I'm going through figuring out how old somebody is. And not in a bad way, but it's like, oh my gosh, somebody my age finally. And because especially for this program, I mean, I interview a lot of millennials, and so there are times where it's nice to talk to somebody who is my age. And having said that, though, when I revamped my profile, because here we're doing a whole month of programming just on LinkedIn, I was not going to be the cobbler's kid. I went through my profile, I redid everything. And I took out the years I was at the universities. I mean, add them back in. I don't know. I mean, and it's nice that LinkedIn finally allows that, because that was something that they didn't allow. You used to have to put the years that you attended, for good and bad reasons. But I just, I took it out. I thought, but yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing is LinkedIn, as we've gone through all of these things, it has adapted to things like that.
Yes, it is.
It has unfortunately realized that there are things like ageism, and so, but I'm also a firm believer that, especially if, say, you're hiring someone who might be a little more mature, they're also a lot more experienced.
Yes.
They're a lot more knowledgeable, and they might cost you a little bit more, but it'll be better in the long run. Because I see people's pictures all the time where I know that headshot is 20 years old, or more. I've actually still seen some glamour shots, right? Remember those glamour shots where
I do remember
the boas and the hat, I always had to wear a hat. But yeah, I mean, it's the picture does need to be a current picture. And if that means that we've got a little gray hair, so be it.
Own it, right? I mean, I don't think there's a problem with gray hair, but like you said, you bring more experience and wisdom with hopefully with that gray hair. But there are things that ageism is a thing, but there are things that you can do in your profile that says I'm still with it, right? So
and a lot of that is in your posts.
It's in your
posts, that you're
still
current.
Yes, that's the thing, because if you can show that you're relevant still, right, then the age. For some, it may play a factor, but I think our workforce is starting to get a little bit more mature also. So it's not and it's funny because you'll hear millennials talk about, well, I can't find a job because they want people older. So depending on who you're talking to.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just, but yeah.
But you can even use your banner, right? I saw the difference in one gentleman's profile where he just had the stock LinkedIn assigned background.
Oh yes, the blue.
Right. And as soon as he put a nice banner, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that just all of a sudden he was a lot more current.
He's with it.
Exactly.
He understands the platform is maybe the better way to put it.
Yes. Yes. So he's starting to use some of that more modern technology. So then all of a sudden I saw him differently. So there are things that we can do in our profile, like you said, the things that we're posting about, the way that we're writing our LinkedIn profile, our about section. What are you saying about yourself? Are you saying things that says you're old and out of touch, or are you saying things that says I'm still staying current? So things we can do.
Yeah. And it was interesting as we were talking about this, I was thinking, I mentioned when I read your bio that you work with people from the Air Force. That's always a tricky thing when they're transitioning from a military career into the private sector. And I've worked with former military folks also. And it's so funny because, a lot of times they'll say, well, I can't put what I did in my profile or I'd have to kill you. Yeah. But that's where it's so important for them to really think about the other things. And the same thing goes with people who maybe have been a stay-at-home parent, or volunteering. I mean, all those things. I mean, you get skills that transition. You get people skills. You get skills with budgeting. You get, and so that's what you're putting in there. But then your posts are also the way where you show, okay, I know what's going on in marketing. I know what's going on in technology. And so, yes, I may have been career military, but I also know what's going on out in the non-military world.
Right. Well, there's a lot of things there's a misnomer, I think, in the general population about the military in terms of what they do, what I used to do, because there are so
it's
many
still pretty much a business. I mean, whether people want to think about it that way, it is a business. I mean, you have budgets, you have employees, and you clearly have military, but you also have non-military employees. I mean, all sorts of things that are there. It is still a business.
Well, so the Air Force is like, I look at it as a corporation.
Right.
The Army is a different corporation, right? The enterprise is the Department of Defense. So, but even within that, there are doctors, lawyers, logisticians, finance people. And it's funny because sometimes people will say to the military folks, well, in a civilian environment when you work with civilians, I'm like, well, hello, military people actually work with civilians.
Yeah.
So, but what I tell the military folks though is, use LinkedIn, and everybody really should be also using it as a research tool,
right?
Because if you're trying to do something different, how are people that are doing what you want to do, how are they talking about themselves? Because that will give you an indication of maybe some of the terminology you might want to use, because maybe in your career field, what you're doing, maybe you call it one thing, but in a different corporation, they call it something different. So then you just want to go,
if you're in the military, you had an acronym for it.
Exactly. So, exactly. So just figure out, okay, that is actually this over here. They're calling it something different. I've actually done that. So let me use the terminology that that industry is interested in, or that they use. So you can draw the parallels. And so then people don't see you as us and them. They see you as like, oh, you're one of us.
Right. And it's so important for somebody who is transitioning from something like that into the business world to do things like volunteering also. I mean, that's where they can get other experience to be able to add into that, or maybe they're that's one of the things I always tell college kids is you absolutely, not only is it a fabulous way to make connections, I mean, they always keep that in mind, but it's also a great way to get that experience to say, hey, I'm thinking about going into public relations. Can I help you plan this event?
Exactly.
And things like that. But yeah, some of the best connections that I have from a business standpoint, I've gotten through volunteering.
Volunteering is so, I think people don't think about it in terms of just, yes, you're volunteering for this particular organization because their mission resonates with you, but you are putting yourself in direct contact with other people.
Right.
And when you're trying to learn those new skills, right, you're able to then still have accomplishments. You are learning along the way, and then you can talk about what you've done in that capacity in terms of accomplishments. Right. So it's in particular, like if you're trying to do something just a little bit different, and you mentioned, it's so funny that you mentioned the stay-at-home mom or dad these days. There are lots of different things that you're doing in that capacity. Right. So
so many things like PTA and, all of those various things, or, this is one place where it is okay to actually talk about religion. Maybe you managed, you were on their building committee, but, and so you helped raise funds. I mean, there's all sorts of ways where, things like that can tie in.
Well, exactly. And I was just having that conversation with some folks actually on Facebook today. And it was about, because I used to be a stay-at-home mom, and thankfully, well, I think with the pandemic, people are starting to realize there are a lot of accomplished people that are home for a reason, for a particular time. But I give myself a title. When people would ask me what I did, I told them I was a futures developer.
Because like domestic goddess, but
well, because the amount of importance you put on it is the amount of importance that other people will put on it as well. So
I know somebody who says I'm just a mom, I'm like, no,
there's no just about it, right?
That's the one of the most important things you can be doing.
Exactly. And so how you talk about that even on LinkedIn in terms of, there was a period of time when, I talked about a lot of the volunteer work that I was doing, and I was doing meeting facilitation and some of the different things. So I'm still bringing out the skills that would be relevant for what I want to do going forward. So still paying attention to who's your target audience, because you need to still speak in those terms. But there's lots of accomplishments.
And you can certainly be reading industry articles and all sorts of things like that. So maybe you're home raising the kidlets, but you're still reading Fortune and Forbes and Entrepreneur and all of those things, and being able to do that.
Yeah, if you know you want to get back out there at some point, and that was the one thing that I would say in hindsight, that I would have been more intentional about. And that was because I did eventually, I said, well, I need to get back out there. So I did tool up on the things that maybe I had let go. But that's one thing I would say, folks who are staying at home for this period of time because of the pandemic or whatever, don't let things pass you by. Stay current. And because those are still things you could be writing about on LinkedIn. So you're still giving your thought leadership out there.
Right. Well, and staying current with it is a heck of a lot easier than trying to play catch up, and so, while you're home, have that LinkedIn profile, maybe you're not as active on it, but you're there and you've got connections and you're kind of working it. And then when you're ready to get back into the marketplace, you've got that there, and it is much easier than trying to start from scratch during all of this.
And see, you can still be given to your network. You can still be giving, right? Articles or engaging in other people's posts. And so you're still building that social capital. You're still getting to meet more people. You're still getting to know more people, deepening the relationships. And you just never know where that might lead, because you meet somebody in one area and you never know who they know, how you might be able to be of help to them, how they may be able to be of help to you down the road. So yeah, it's great to stay active.
I've heard more than one person say this, that at the start of the pandemic, they were an employee. And then all of a sudden they were not an employee, or they were worried that, and still could be that, things could change. And so again, why not have you should have been active on LinkedIn, even if you were just an employee for somebody, you never know when things might change. And I've had this conversation more than once with people. You might think you've got the greatest job in the world, but there might be an even better job that's going to find you. I had a friend one time that he loved his job. He thought it was great. He loved the people, all sorts of things, but he got contacted by a headhunter who made him an offer he couldn't refuse. And it was simply because, and they found him through LinkedIn. He had stayed active on LinkedIn. He maintained his connections, postings, all of those various things. And, he took that opportunity. So you never know what's going to be out there.
Right. Well, as a recruiter, which I used to do a while ago, we knew that most, even executives will say, I'm in between job searches.
Right.
Meaning if the right opportunity comes along, then I might be willing to look at that opportunity. On the other side of that is you never know, you might be in a position and you love your job and then your supervisor changes. And then all of a sudden it's not
quite so hunky-dory.
Right. So just always keeping your options open, being the CEO of you, which means advertising, which is part of that posting process, right? Keeping yourself top of mind in a meaningful way, in a way that you're still giving to others. So while it does help you, you're helping others as you go.
Right. And I want to talk about your book, and obviously about the services and things that you offer. But I love that this is clearly you wrote this with this exact intent in mind. The very first sentence on your website, and it says, "What if the next person that comes across your path today is the exact person you need to know tomorrow?" And I mean, that says it all right there. That's why we have to be so thoughtful and so conscious about how we network, and the fact that it really, in many ways, is a 24/7 type of thing. You never know when that person at the grocery store or sitting next to you 6 feet away at this, at your child's softball game, you never know when that might be the person that you really need to know tomorrow. And so I love your book. Again, it's called I Need to Know You: How to Meet Ordinary Extraordinary People and Improve Your Life. And it was, tell us the premise about it, because I just love this whole concept.
So I took up the challenge really because when I work with the military folks, part of that is they need to now take themselves out of the military environment and into the civilian world, and they need to form their new tribe. But what I also found as I was going through this is there are a lot of individuals that are moving for work reasons or different reasons, and everybody is looking to get connected.
Right.
Since I was actually teaching practical steps to networking, I really took up the challenge as a tool of credibility, really. It was to be able to say to the folks that I was teaching, if I can meet 100 people in 100 days, well, then surely you can go out and meet 15 or 20.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't saying to people, you've got to go meet 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, if you have the intention of making some meaningful, mutually beneficial relationships, meeting people,
Mm-hmm.
investing in those relationships,
Mm-hmm.
over time, you build a robust network of people that you've been either able to help or they've
Right.
been able to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship itself is valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So I always look at networking as relationship building. That's how I
Yes.
define
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And if people approach it from that standpoint, it's not a what can you get, what can I get? It's what can I give?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the people that have really, that even the folks that I met in my challenge, they are still investing in my life. They are making an impact to this day. And hopefully my hope is that I'm able and have been helping them as well.
Right.
So you just never know who that person is going to be. So don't prejudge.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to put a challenge out there to folks, for 2 weeks, we're just going to say 2 weeks, make a new LinkedIn connection every day. So it's just 14 people, really, that shouldn't be difficult. And so, we could say 100, for 100 days but really it's not that difficult. And I think that's the thing that people are they get daunted by it. They think I can't do that. But if you're somewhat active on LinkedIn, I mean, one of the first things that you would do is you would look for people, alumni. I mean, that's a great place. People who work for, in your industry, that's another great place. You would go to, say, my profile and people who commented on some things that I've written. Oh, hey, that seems interesting. More importantly, like one of the things that I've been doing for this month is for my guests, I'm putting their LinkedIn URL in the show notes. So,
awesome.
there's people right there. And so I think it's, we all think, oh my gosh, meet a new person in a pandemic. I'm not going out. No, it's easier.
It's not that hard.
And especially for people who in-person networking maybe is scary, is daunting, is terrifying, right? Or just, today's not my day to go do that, right? Even the biggest extroverts, like, hello, me. There are times where I think, I don't want to be here today. But yeah, to be doing it online, that's easy, and so I'm going to challenge folks. So let us know, if you were able to accomplish this, and, reach out to people. And one of the things that I've definitely made an effort to do is to not only connect with new people every day, but then to look through and go, okay, this is somebody that I need to get to know better.
Exactly.
So if they've responded, and so we kind of got that thing going right away, I go ahead and say, I'd love to chat on Zoom. We're not meeting in person. Let's go ahead and I've only had one person say,
Right.
that person that said, nothing wrong with them. Maybe their schedule's just really full. I mean, they could be somebody like Bob Berg who just can't do that all the time. But yeah, reach out to those folks. So yeah, I'm going to challenge our people who are listening to this, 14 new contacts in 14 days, or, you really want to, you want to get a little picky with this, 10 if you're only doing LinkedIn on weekdays, but right, we're not making this scary, but the point is we want to show how easy it is. But again, think about why you're on LinkedIn, who you want to connect with. So it's not just, I'm going to go find anybody, be purposeful about this.
And I would also say, Deb, when somebody's reaching out to someone, especially if they don't know them, looking through their profile, have a reason why,
Right.
Because I'll connect with people if they can tell me why they want to connect. Again, either I can help them or they can help me. As long as I have a reason why and it makes sense, I'll go ahead and connect. And then, like you said, then work on the relationship. Don't just connect and move on. Connect and see how you can give to them.
Right.
And build that relationship.
Not to speak for you, but if somebody were to send you a LinkedIn connection and say, oh my gosh, I just heard this fabulous interview, more than likely you're going to say, okay.
I would take the time to listen.
But yeah, I mean, so it can be, I saw that we went to the same school. I like that post you just did, all of those various things, because we're not meeting in person. I mean, we're not saying, hey, we just attended the same conference. We just went to whatever. So we're having to work just a smidge harder, but that's okay because it's going to be worth it.
And it's really important that we do stay connected to
Mhm.
people in this particular, we just have to be a little bit more intentional, like you're saying, but all of us are still craving that connection.
Right.
So
Mhm.
because everybody's pretty much in the same boat,
Mhm.
like you said, reaching out to folks and saying, hey, is it possible for us to jump on Zoom for 15 minutes?
Mhm.
And then you just never know, that 15 minutes might turn a little bit longer because you're having
Oh,
such a
I
great.
know. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, oh my gosh, we have filled the hour. I tell people this is why I set a timer, because you and I, we
We could just keep going.
the husbands would starve for dinner, before we'd figure out, oh my gosh, we need to go do something. And maybe they should be cooking dinner. But anyhow, so we talked about your book, which is, again, I Need to Know You: How to Meet Ordinary, Extraordinary People and Improve Your Life. But tell people how they find you and connect with you, and then how you can work with folks.
Sure. Thank you, Deb. So, of course, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is spelled a little bit differently, so you just have to pay attention to the spelling of my name. But LinkedIn is a great place. You can also connect with me on KymberliSpeight.com. So I have the website that lists, I'm a speaker. So if you need someone to be a speaker for you, either virtually, or we will eventually be doing that in person. I also do some coaching, and I have some pre-recorded modules that are coming up specifically on digital branding. So people
Great.
might be interested in that.
Mhm.
On networking,
Mhm.
and finding the hidden job market. So those are some pre-recorded episodes people can, take a look at.
Mhm.
But also if somebody's interested in coaching or for me to come and speak for them.
Wonderful. I love it. I love it. Well, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave folks with?
I would say if you're a little bit intimidated,
Mhm.
just get out there. Right. And if you think that, so I hear all the time people say, well, I'm an introvert. And I will say that introverts are actually better at networking, or can be better at networking, because they are better at paying attention and listening versus I'm an extrovert. So I tend to have a lot to say. So knowledge is power. So just know that people are wanting to connect, be authentic in that connection, and look to give. And you will just be amazed at how your life can be just so much different from giving.
Perfect. I love it. Well, I've been having an absolutely wonderful second conversation with Kymberli Speight. Can't wait to do again. We'll have to, third time we'll
Awesome.
get set up. But I am Deb Creer. I've been talking with Kymberli Speight, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Thanks, Doug.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.